You're watching Wisconsin Eye, an independent, nonprofit public affairs network, engaging the citizens of Wisconsin since 2007 through access to government proceedings and public policy events.
Farm this week, so here are your farm numbers.
Okay, Brett Pence, if you want to get started.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Assembly Democrats, it's just our pre-session media avail. Wanted to make a few comments and then answer any questions from the media today. I'm joined by my colleagues from the respective committees, of which the bills are here before us today. Before I get started, just wanted to simply acknowledge the tragedy that occurred in Colorado with the death of, I think, at least 10 people. Perhaps no sign that we're restoring some normalcy post-pandemic than the horrible part of normal in the return to mass shootings. And, as we think about the loved ones and those who were lost there, hope we will try to recommit ourselves to a better society and certainly take any proactive action that we can at the state level, which we know Governor Evers has called for related to background checks and other things that may be able to minimize gun violence. So anyway, for our legislative session here today, obviously there's a mix of bills on the calendar. And I think the one thing that we see both in common is at a time when we are trying to encourage, incentivize, get buy-in on the number of people getting vaccinated as a way to minimize the spread and really put an end to the COVID virus. We have bills today that actually send the opposite message. The intent behind them seems to be pandering towards the same kind of anti-science, anti-public health, position that's out there at the worst time possible. I would expect Governor Evers to take a strong stand against these public health measures. And it's really questionable when we see these on the calendar. The other measure that we see is the same old big lie, as Mitch McConnell and others have called it, related to continuing to try to delegitimize the election results of November. And similar to some of the criticism of Ron Johnson lately, Republicans seem to be making a concerted effort with both that resolution and the vaccine bills to undermine the public's confidence and trust in those very things, democracy and vaccine and public health at the time when we can least afford them. So there's certainly no shortage of things that we should be acting upon. But today is, again, one of those examples where I think you need to question what's the intent of what we're doing, and shouldn't state leaders be doing everything possible to restore public confidence in both vaccines and our democracy during this key time. And so those are my opening comments. We're happy to answer any questions before the session day today.
So if members of the press could please use the raise hand function, or if you're on your mobile device, please use the *9 to use raise hand, and we will call on you with any questions. Adam Kellenhofer.
Hi, Adam with WisPolitics.com here. So Democrats are trying to, or Republicans are trying to get power over the COVID-19 spending from the pandemic relief bill. And Democrats are trying to obviously give that power to, or like keep the power with Governor Evers. I was wondering if we would see the same power struggle if Governor Scott Walker took Governor Evers' place. Would Democrats be willing to give that power to Scott Walker, previously, or is something different here?
Well, I think the big difference is, Governor Evers is the executive, and the public health management of a pandemic belongs in the executive branch. They have the professionals in the agencies there. They don't have politicians that are informing the decisions that are ultimately being made in the administration of those federal dollars. And so to us, it's not really a political question. It is, there are a lot of people employed at places like the Department of Health Services that are public servants. They're not politicians. And the advice, I think the best politics you can have during a pandemic is doing what's best for the public. And I think that's been what Governor Evers' policy has been throughout, not getting wrapped up in some of the emotional, contentious fights that are out there. And so, look, this comes from the same Republican legislature that has never acknowledged Governor Evers' win. From the lame duck session to sort of starving the political process in terms of things that we are doing on behalf of the public. If they want to be governor, then run for governor, right? But don't try to have a group of politicians micromanage what's in the best interest of the state, delaying things. I mean, quite frankly, one of the better parts of the federal package that was just passed is it bypasses the state. That bypasses the circus and gets some of the resources directly to municipalities and counties, as well as providers out there, as if they recognize that the circus existed and there might be this kind of meddling at play. So that's my answer.
Thanks. Are there any other questions from members of the press? WKO W27.
Hello, Representative Hintz. I know that you had mentioned wanting to recommit to gun legislation. What specific types of legislation would you like to see the legislature take up this session?
Well, given where the public is when we see universal background checks, I think most of the public does not think violent felons should be able to purchase firearms and get them in their hands. I have no idea if in this case that would have been enough of a deterrent to prevent the shooting. And I'm not saying that there's a law that we could pass that would stop all of this gun violence, but leaders have a responsibility to take any measure possible. And we do know that measure would save lives or would have saved lives in the past. So let's start there. But the idea that we can't do anything and we're not going to do anything for unfounded reasons, is absurd. Again, I'm not going to politically pander the other way, but the reality is we need to demonstrate to the public that we recognize that this happens in the US and it doesn't really happen in other places. And we should do everything possible to minimize the risks out there and demonstrate to the public that we care.
Thanks. So we'll take one last question from Melanie Conklin, Wisconsin Examiner. Mel?
Are you muted, Mel?
All right, looks like we might be having some technical difficulties. So we'll follow up with you, Melanie, after this. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks.
This program is a production of Wisconsin Eye, an independent, nonpartisan, nonprofit media network with a mission to inform, educate, and engage the citizens of Wisconsin. Wisconsin Eye is the nation's first and only independently funded state civics broadcast network, providing gavel-to-gavel access to government proceedings and events at the state capitol.